Bitcoin has been mostly going sideways over the last week, and some have actually come out and said, well, Bitcoin is dying and Bitcoin is dead. But in this video, I want to explain that Bitcoin is not dead. It is merely hibernating for the next move up. And in this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you some important metrics as well as some chart TA and some metrics that will drive my point home here. So before we get to that, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to follow me on X and also on Threads. So with Bitcoin, as I said before, we've been kind of stuck in a bit of a range, and people have been taken to calling this basically a stable coin at this point. Well, I always think that's funny because when Bitcoin tends to move sideways, it tends to consolidate in a range. And this normally happens before we wind up seeing a huge move either to the upside or to the downside. And I always think back to those people and I say, okay, well, you got your move to the upside or the downside. Are you happy now? And most of the time, they're not happy with it. Most of the time, it's Bitcoin falling, or it's Bitcoin going up so fast they don't have a chance to even buy it. But right now, what we're seeing in the Bitcoin price is we're seeing Bitcoin in a major consolidation between 29,000 and about 29,700. It's been bouncing along this range ever since the 24th of July. And so what you're seeing here right now is the absence of either the bulls or the bears being able to take control of the market. And I can demonstrate this by looking at the perpetual futures market. If we go over here and take a look at our perpetual futures, we can see here quite a few metrics in front of us, including the funding rates, which gives us an idea of the sentiment. And right now, sentiment is long. However, we're starting to see a little bit of deterioration in the number of longs in this area right here. But we're at the same time also seeing an increase in the open interest, which means more contracts are being opened. So what we've seen over the past couple of days is we've seen the longs increase their position, followed by pockets of liquidation. Like we have this long liquidation down here, 14 million. This set of long liquidations down here, about 11 million or so over here. And then over here, we see another liquidation of longs at about 7 million. So what's happening here is that these traders are entering into new long contracts. The price fails to break out at a certain point, and then they get liquidated. And so we're seeing the battle of the bulls versus the bears, and neither side has been strong enough to win yet. There have been no bullish or bearish catalysts to push Bitcoin out of this trading range, but it won't always be like that. And most of the time, when Bitcoin sets up in a trading range, there's usually a catalyst or something that pushes the price higher or lower. But Bitcoin isn't dead, okay? It may be merely hibernating. And I want to go ahead and draw your attention to the Bitcoin exchange Netflow. This gives us an idea of the flow of Bitcoins coming to and from the exchanges. And what we've started to see here over the past couple of days is a significant outflow of Bitcoin from major exchanges. And this right here can show us that there's still latent demand in the system. Right now, we can see about almost 10,000 or so Bitcoin leaving the exchanges, and that's over a period of about 3 days. So that's really important to notice, the fact that we have such an extreme outflow of Bitcoin from the exchange. People are buying and taking their Bitcoin off of the exchanges. And then also, if we take a look at our active addresses, we can see here the number of active addresses continues to push higher. We're in a very nice little uptrend here. This is the 1-year chart in the simple moving average of 14 days. And so what we're seeing here is more activity on the blockchain and more usage of the Bitcoin use case. And again, if we take a look at our Bitcoin transaction count, we can see that this is still to the upside, right? We're still seeing a nice increase in the number of our transaction total. Back in the August of 2022, or about a year ago, we're at 254,000, and now we're at about 447,000 transactions. So we're starting to see more activity throughout the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, we also can go ahead and take a look at our total liquidations for crypto, because I think it's important to point out what has been going on in the crypto space. We've seen huge liquidations across many different coins. We've seen a number of days, about 4 days here, in which we've had double-digit long liquidations, and longs have just absolutely gotten punished over the past couple of days. So that's something that has been holding the price down, especially if we take a look at Bitcoin. We've seen $23 million in long liquidations on one day, and almost $20 million of Bitcoin long liquidations in another day. So that's another reason why the price has been so low. However, I want to go ahead and talk about something else that's very important to Bitcoin, that's actually changing the narrative a little bit. And that is the idea here that the credit rating for the United States will help make the case for Bitcoin. Now, CoinDesk put out this article. I think it's very important to point out what's going on in this article. But the idea here is that the U.S. government recently had a debt downgrade by the credit agency Fitch, okay, from a AAA to a AA plus. And the reason why this could potentially make the case for Bitcoin is because this shows degradation in the government. It shows a lack of trust. And whenever you have any sort of lack of trust in the traditional financial systems, Bitcoin tends to benefit. Think about when we had back in March, we had the massive number of banks that failed, and Bitcoin went up as a result. If we go back over here to March, we can see in the Bitcoin chart where that happened. Actually, we're going all the way back here to March right here. We had a quick dump and then a massive pump all the way up to about 28K. Now, this right here showed a complete lack of faith in the traditional finance systems. And the idea here is that that credit downgrading is also going to be making the case for Bitcoin, because people will see that the government is failing in its fiscal responsibilities and its fiscal duties. Okay, so as more of these down ratings happen in the future, we can see Bitcoin being the beneficiary. Now, another thing I want to talk about is Block, formerly known as Square, released their earnings, and you can actually go and buy Bitcoin on their Cash App, and they've put out their earnings. It's very interesting to note that they had significant growth through users who are buying Bitcoin. They say they have generated $44 million of Bitcoin gross profit in the second quarter of 2023, up 7% year over year. Okay, that's particularly interesting here because it's up 7% year over year. The total sale amount of Bitcoin sold to customers, which we recognize as Bitcoin revenue, was $2.39 billion, up 34% year over year. So this is, quite frankly, amazing, because you have an interest in Bitcoin by, you can call it maybe casual users that are using Cash App, 34% year over year. There is a 34% increased demand compared to Q2 of last year, okay? So this shows, and in another way, that Bitcoin demand is still incredibly strong. And Cash App is probably one of the easiest ways for users to go and buy Bitcoin. Hopefully, after that point, they pull it off of Cash App and put it in a wallet and secure that Bitcoin. But it is interesting to point out that Block has this increase over time, okay? Now, the last thing I want to draw your attention to is the Bitcoin net unrealized profit and loss. Now, this currently stands at about 30%. So of all the Bitcoin, okay, the net unrealized profit is 30%. 30%. That puts us at a higher level than at any point in, say, the last year or so. Okay, it's at the highest point we've seen in the last year. And the only time it was higher was back in May and April of 2022, before we saw that massive, that crunch, that huge fall in the Bitcoin prices. Right now, the whole economy is in a much better shape. The Bitcoin economy is in a much better shape of that 30% unrealized profit. Okay, so again, putting this all into context, Bitcoin's not dead. Bitcoin is merely hibernating, but there is still an increased demand for Bitcoin and the services it provides because there is so much going on in the world. People want to self-custody, they want to be their own banks, they want to wind up using transactions and not have to worry about having a financial institution get in the way of that happening. But what we're seeing right now is a Bitcoin price that is basically hibernating, is asleep. But just remember that Bitcoin never goes sideways for very long, and we are eventually going to see a breakout to the upside or a breakdown to the downside. Okay, so that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about this. If you guys think that America is going to wind up getting another credit downgrading, I'm definitely interested in hearing about that. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you guys have been buying this. Again, I'm eyeing a buy under this level right here at about 28.8. Anywhere below that 28.8 level, I'm very interested in getting some more Bitcoin, okay? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and I hope to catch you guys in the next video.